Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the experience afternoon, day two. We have a great session here with a couple of guest presenters and speakers, along with our co-founder, Izzy Azari. So you are in the session that's tackling complex application testing with automation, featuring our customer Stack Overflow. Before we jump into what you're really here for, I'm just going to go over a couple of housekeeping items. So a reminder that we are recording today's this session and all of the sessions from yesterday and today. So you'll be able to take a look at those at any time afterward. If you have a question during today's session and you want to ask it, you can go ahead and do that through the Q&A portion of the Cvent platform. So feel free to submit those questions at any time. I'll be taking a look at those. I'll be sharing them with Izzy so he can read them aloud to Meredith and Dale as we go through the discussion today. So you can also use the chat function if you have any comments or any other feedback you want to provide. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Izzy Azari. Go ahead, Izzy.
Thanks a lot, Katie. And I'm super excited for this session to talk to Dale and Meredith from Stack Overflow. If you're familiar with Stack Overflow like I am, I've used it a lot to answer those technical questions that I'm curious about. But what you may not know is Stack Overflow has a private product as well for private businesses. So we're going to learn a lot more about how Stack Overflow approaches testing with that product. So as background, I'm one of the co-founders, spent a lot of time with our enterprise customers here at Mabel, and I'll hand it over to Dale and Meredith to introduce themselves, and we'll dive right in. Dale? I think you're on mute, Dale.
I'm sorry. Off to a good start. So thanks, Izzy. My name is Dale Cook. I am the VP of Product Engineering at Stack Overflow. I'm pretty new to Stack. I joined in February. I'm really excited to be here. Stack Overflow obviously is a cornerstone of the software development and technology industry, and I've been using Stack since there was a Stack. Like I said, I'm fairly new here, joined in February, but I've spent the last 25 years doing technology, primarily startups in Silicon Valley.
And I'm Meredith Hatzenbuehler. I'm based out of San Antonio, Texas, and working as a software engineer focused on testing at Stack Overflow. So I'm super excited to be here and talk all things test.
Great. Well, thanks, Meredith. Thanks, Dale. And why don't we jump right in? So, when it comes to quality and testing, before you ran into Mabel, can you talk a little bit about what that looked like at Stack and perhaps some of the challenges that you were having that perhaps made you explore something new?
Yeah, so we have a wonderful, 13-year-old code base that was in need of kind of, reevaluating how we approach things. And things like our Teams product didn't exist in the beginning, and now they do. So one of the things that Mabel and looking for a new testing tool helped us realize is, rather than looking at things on like a product level, looking at things on like a component level, because we have a lot of reused components throughout different products. And so finding a tool that could help us use and reuse that type of thing and be a little more time effective was definitely something we were looking for.
Yeah, and I think, taking sort of a holistic view of this, right? We had relied on some sort of older testing methodologies, previously. And so when I came in, Meredith and I talked a lot about, well, how do we sort of move that forward? Like, how do we take this very complex product that we have, regardless if it's our public platform that everyone probably knows and loves, or whether it's our Teams product, which is our our SaaS offering, sort of private Stack Overflow. Like, how do we sort of build a testing framework that can test these very mature and complex products, and how can we do it in a way that doesn't require us to spend a lot of like engineering resources? Like, engineering resources are really expensive. We want engineers to sort of be sort of building new things and doing new things that are interesting and that kind of thing. How do we build a really robust testing platform for a complex product without having to take a lot of engineering resources? And so we started to look at, well, how can we do that? How can we automate that? And how can we do it so that we can do it in a fairly simple way? And I've done this before in a couple of other companies with different tools. And we ran a process where, and Meredith did the bulk of the heavy lifting here, went out and sort of surveyed the market, and sort of, we came up with a set of criteria that we wanted. And we went out and Meredith went out and surveyed the market and looked at a whole bunch of tools. And what we came back with was Mabel was a clear winner. There were some other tools that allow that sort of ease of testing creation that Mabel does, but they weren't performant. I won't mention them, but they were kind of slow in the way that they worked. We could build tests really fast, but the tests themselves were not particularly fast. There were other products that were fast on their tests, but they didn't offer the flexibility or the ease of test construction. And then the other thing that really sold us on Mabel was its integration with the engineering workflow. So not just with building tests and then sort of getting Mabel integrated into our CI/CD pipelines and that kind of thing, but integration with engineering workflows so that engineers can be running Mabel tests, not just their unit tests and not just their integration tests, but the actual Mabel tests as part of their workflow. That was a really powerful thing. So all those things sort of added up to make Mabel a clear winner.
That's great. I appreciate that insight for the people on. And so I think you've been using the product now for close to a year. How's it going so far? How has automated testing impacted either product delivery or happiness of the development team? Or can you talk a little bit about that?
Meredith, do you want to?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that has stood out is, when I was looking through a number of different products, part of the goal was like, let me see how far I can get. Can I write a test? Can I run the test? Can I see results? Are they helpful? And so Mabel obviously, came to the top of the list very easily. But one of the things that I've even been surprised about is how much value we've gotten out of things like screenshots in every step, network information, the DOM, et cetera. That has so helped our loop with other teams, even if it's SRE, to be able to come in and say, I can say, hey, here's some Mabel credentials, go log in, go look at this test. It's on step 43 or whatever. And they're like, great, I have exactly what I need. Whereas before, maybe you have to have some back and forth discussions, or maybe you don't have that detailed of a record with other types of automated testing. And so you're like, okay, well, let's wait till this happens again and we'll try and get more information. And that loop of solving problems has definitely become much more efficient.
That's great. And Dale, you mentioned earlier, one of the things you saw was how Mabel integrates into the different areas from a development process perspective. Can you talk a little bit about what are those areas you've integrated Mabel into that have been beneficial for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment, we're really concentrating on the team product, right? So again, Teams, Stack Overflow for Teams is our SaaS product. And so we're really concentrating there so we can do a better job of servicing our customers. But sort of going forward, we have a much sort of grander visions for how we'll implement Mabel. We definitely want to bring it into the other parts of the engineering organization, so to service the public site and all of our other sort of parts that we have. Like we've got an advertising platform, it'd be great to bring it in and sort of service that as well, and sort of really spread it around and have it as an integrated part of our overall testing strategy. But more than that, one of the value propositions that we see from Mabel is that we can push it into other areas of the organization that may not traditionally look at testing as sort of part of their realm or part of the value that they might want to enjoy. So, for example, we want the product organization, right, to be much more involved in the test creation process. So instead of product sort of having to write something up and then send it off to testing, and testing sort of implement it and come back and go, is this right? And they're like, no, right? So this sort of very sort of, convoluted cycles that take a long time and a lot of resources. We want a tool that product could go, this is my acceptance criteria for this particular story or whatever. I'm just going to write it. I'm going to go and build it in Mabel. It's going to take me less time to build that test than it is to write up a document to send it to testing or to work with testing to try and build something for me. So this tool allows the front line to have more contact with the thing that they want to achieve, right? So in this case, it's product. We're also thinking about, well, how do you implement this in other areas that might even be further away from the engineering? And some things that have sort of come up is like, could you use it in the sales cycle, right? So if you're doing sort of targeted sales, right? So I'm going into a company, and before I go into that company to do my sales pitch, I'm rolling up an instance that's branded for that company already. It looks like their website, like it has their logos, like maybe I've even taken some content and put it in. Well, that's great. But as a salesperson, the last thing I want to have happen is I do that. Like I've usually got an automated tool that will do that. I put all these bits and pieces in. The last thing I want to happen is that I go into that sales cycle and something has broken in there. So you can imagine I put my materials in an automated system. I create that specific instance for this sale, and then we run Mabel against it for the path that sales is going to do. So sales gets a report back. So they know before time that is correct, and they don't have to spend their time going and checking that is the case. They can do more of what they're trying to do, which is sales. So that's an incredibly powerful way of thinking about how to utilize this technology and how to push it outside of just engineering and product and into other parts of the organization. So hopefully that gives some insight on how we're thinking about it in the future.
Yeah, and it really sounds consistent. We heard a message yesterday where there was a similar kind of use case at Schwab where product owners were getting involved in acceptance testing, and really what it did for them is it drove inclusion, right? They felt connected now to the development team and the testing team, but more importantly, confidence that what the feature was that they actually developed is exactly working the way they expected it to, because they're the ones that wrote the test for it. So that's a great use case. Meredith, since you've probably been hands on keyboard, doing a lot of the stuff from a test and on the development side, can you talk a little bit about for those people listening, what are some of the best practices you've instituted as you've ramped up your kind of rollout of Mabel internally?
Flows. Just like I said, we have so much potential. We're kind of focusing on our MVP with the team's product, but so many things that we're working on for this product also correspond to public and other areas. So we're trying to think of that upfront, which is like, how can I do this in actionable components that I can just plug into a different environment, but I know that this feature is part of that, and now it will work, right? And silly things too, like credentials, how we're organizing that, how we're naming those across different environments, just to like minimize the amount of rework we have to do to make Mabel run easily. I would say those are probably the two big ones.
That's great. And do other people collaborate with you on those flows? So there's a way that other people can use those as well? Yeah,
we have a small group that's dedicating to Mabel right now. So they're doing a ton of work there of iterating on that. And then we'll kind of bring in like a different tier, a different version. Okay, how did we do anticipating needs for this type of thing, and kind of slowly growing out and adapting as we go.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Well, why don't we switch gears a little bit? I know, part of the challenge right now across the world is around hiring, right? And I'm sure, Stack Overflow is hiring right now as well. Can you talk a little bit about, what are the types of skill sets you look for in folks? What types of people are most successful at Stack Overflow? And feel free to talk about some of the open roles you have as well.
Thank you, Izzy. Absolutely, yes. We are most definitely hiring. We've, we've had some growth plans for Stack for some time, and as you probably know, the recent process acquisition of Stack Overflow has accelerated that. We need to hire more people. We need to hire across the board. And if anyone out there wants to work at Stack, please come and work at Stack. We'd love to have you. You can go and check out our careers page, and we have open positions all over the place. As for what makes someone successful at Stack, it's an incredibly collaborative environment. We're not very big, and we get a lot done. Like, we get about 100 million uniques per month. And that's pretty good traffic. I think we're at least in the top 50 most traffic websites in the world. And so we get a lot of that done with a small engineering team. We're about 60 at the moment, I think, although again, we have lots of opportunity to expand there. But one of the things that, that obviously we want smart people and problem solvers and good engineers. But one of the things that's really stunning about Stack Overflow is just how collaborative it is. And it struck me coming in to Stack fairly recently, and having spent such a long time in Silicon Valley, about how anyone can go and talk to anyone, right? Like, so the most junior engineer we have can go and say, hey, super VP of engineering, I'm having a problem with this, can you help me? And the answer is yes. And we love to come together and sort of share ideas, and I know everyone says that, but it really does happen at Stack, and it's really quite amazing to sort of watch and have people who have 15, 20 years of engineering experience listening to and taking in and sort of working with people who are very early on in their career and incorporating their ideas into solutions. And that's really, that's really an amazing place to be. And I think the other thing that, one of the things that we have planned over the next couple of years is really revitalizing our technology. Like, as Meredith said, it's a older code base, and we're going to put a lot of effort and resources into bringing that sort of more up to date. And so, one of the other things that I think is really interesting is people who, things that we're looking for is people who are up for a pretty good technical challenge. Like, there's a lot of things that we need to do, and we're not going to shy away from that. And we don't sort of try and hide that. But I think, trying to make these sort of fundamental changes while keeping Stack up and running in the way that it has for 13 years, a highly efficient, product, that's going to present a number of technical challenges. And I'm certainly interested, and I know a lot of the team is certainly excited about that too. Meredith, would you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with everything you mentioned, and I've never been like a rah, so happy to work at a company before, but it's really hard to not feel that way here. For me, it's been an incredible opportunity to work with developers from all over the world, the Netherlands, Germany, Brazil, Canada, the US. Like, this is just on my team that I talk to every day. Israel, like everywhere. So that's really awesome from a people connection standpoint to a idea sharing standpoint. Like, we're all coming from geographically and so many other points, and it's fun to see the solutions that we can come up with that kind of team. And so that's huge. The other thing that's huge is remote work, right? We've been doing remote work since well before I arrived, and our transition over the last couple of years was pretty seamless because we already kind of operated in a remote first standpoint, which is if you're having a meeting, for example, and let's say 4 out of the 5 people are in the New York office, but 1 is remote, everyone will do the meeting remote from their desk, so that you don't have that situation where there's 4 people hovered around a table and you're kind of a floating head off to the side. And so iterating on that and working on that has made it where yeah, we're all working remote, we're all distributed on time zones, but you don't really feel that as a disconnection. It actually adds to like how we can work together. It's been amazing.
That's fantastic. And Dale, just so you know, we're almost at 100 million uniques as well. So we'll be there
Cool.
probably about next month. So.
All right, then the race is on. Challenge accepted.
For those folks who aren't familiar with Prosus, or what's changed since the Prosus acquisition, can you just share if anything's changed internally or how you're thinking about things? Maybe there's a bigger opportunity now you're chasing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been through acquisitions many times before. Like, just I've had a long career, and so I've been through these things. And I got to say that the Prosus acquisition has been really good for Stack, right? So there's very little change in the way that we work, quite frankly. Basically, Prosus was a little unknown to me before this, and the way they and they have majority holdings or significant investment in a very large number of internet properties, many of which the audience probably knows. Their sort of process is to really come in and provide more resources, but not really to change anything, right? And one of the ways that they provide resources, of course, there's money investment, but the other way they do it is because they have such a large portfolio, they're able to get companies that would have a lot of, and I'm going to use the word synergy, I don't like it, but it's a word for this, working together. So for us, right, we look at things like, say, EdTech, and we say, well, is there an opportunity to add a training component in here, more than just answering questions? Could there be, in Stack or in relation to Stack, could there be some kind of organized training as well? And when we look at that, and we might look at a bunch of companies out that are doing that, and we think about partnerships, and that's a very big deal. Like, there's a lot of friction in that. It's actually harder to do partnerships than a lot of people expect, and so it's a challenge, right? And so we have to sort of say, well, do we have the resources to do that? Well, one of the things that Prosus does is that because it has a lot of these properties and can facilitate these conversations and remove a lot of that friction, it makes things a lot easier. So, while we're not sure exactly where this will lead, one of the things that we are looking at is, well, how do we, in that sort of Prosus portfolio, what are other companies that we're aligned with, and how can we all work together to do a better job of servicing our clients, and provide more value to them, and of course increase the value of Stack and the other companies as well. So that's one of the things that they offer, that I think is actually very hard to get in other places. So that's been really great.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Don't interrupt you, but give you more value as you continue to grow. That's great. We did get a question from the audience here. Maybe Meredith, this might be a good one for you. As you started to use Mabel and get going with it, how long did it take for your team and the rest of the organization to really feel like they understand how to use it and also get value out of the product?
Yeah, so our rollout that we had in mind initially isn't the rollout that we ended up finding effective. So one thing that like a pivot that we made that I think was really effective was, rather than try and bring in all these different teams from day one and try to get an advocate in these groups and let's all get together and spend some time getting familiar with Mabel, that's hard when everybody's rocking and rolling with their normal work. But what helped was, okay, let's get a smaller subset of people to dedicate some time to this on a tier of our product where testing can really be a bigger burden. And let's just iterate on that over a couple of release cycles. And let's take, the low-hanging fruit from our test plan that we know is going to be, some of the easier stuff to learn to write and maintain in Mabel. And then let's start building that to show the value. And once we've been able to do that, now it's like people are more coming to us of like, hey, I heard you have this thing, and everything's easier, or it's getting easier. Like, how do I use it? Do I need to make an account? Where do I do that? And you're like, oh, okay, cool, I can help you. So that approach has been most effective. So I would just say whatever your MVP is, that you can come up with, and whatever the subset is of your test plan that you can start to plug into Mabel and start to demonstrate those results. Like when a step is working, everything's green, it's cool. When a step is broken, here's the data you get, here's how it might be helpful, and just really slicking it down to like those most important parts. And then after doing that, and kind of getting the word out, but also, having like a broader test coverage base that we're slowly growing. And now, that part of the process, we have a much higher level of confidence on certain things, that's hard to resist. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a similar kind of conversation yesterday with Andrea Wood, who's the VP of Engineering at Barracuda. And she said something similar where as the product started to evolve and roll out across the organization, at one point, it just went viral. Like people just wanted to come in and try this new shiny thing because they heard about all the benefits it was providing. I'm curious, when it comes to your team, Meredith, the team that you're on, the people using Mabel, did they have experience with automation previously, or was this kind of brand new to them?
I think we have a mix where some people have worked on some automation and some haven't. And those that haven't found it pretty easy to get up to speed with Mabel. And those that had, whether it was Selenium or something like that, it was like, there was that little bit of in between time. Well, what's a this equate to over here, and that sort of thing. But honestly, we had great support from the support team too, to kind of get us through that first round of questions of like, okay, how do I do this? And, why isn't this working? Or what did I forget to configure or whatever? The turnaround time was so quick that we were able to get up to speed pretty quickly.
That's fantastic. One more question here about just maybe broader for Stack Overflow. What are some of the big projects you're tackling over the next 12 to 18 months that are, kind of you're excited about or are going to have a big impact on the business?
Yeah, I will. We're definitely, there's product release, right? There'll be product improvement, product release that's coming out. But one of the things, and I think I mentioned this before, one of the things we're really excited about is we're doing a lot of tech investment. So some of that's dealing with technical debt, 13-year-old code base. Of course, we're going to have some technical debt. Some of it's dealing with bringing testing sort of more across the platform, right? Automated testing. This is where Mabel comes in, right? Mabel and some other tools. Like that's a big sort of investment we want to make. We continue to think about how we can make a better product for us internally, right? So that it's easier for engineers to build things and more automation, better code base, like that kind of stuff allows us to move faster in our product releases. So over the next year, we're going to spend a lot of resources doing that. We're very excited about that. It's a bit overdue. And we think it's going to have an incredibly important impact on the future growth of Stack Overflow.
That's fantastic. Appreciate that insight, Dale. Let's see if there's no more questions from the audience. Maybe one last question here is, as you think about the future of quality at Stack, right? A lot of people think automated testing is the end, but there's other areas of quality engineering that people think about, whether that's around accessibility or performance or some of those areas. Are there other areas of quality engineering you're thinking about over the next couple of quarters as you kind of continue evolving the platform?
Absolutely. Accessibility is definitely one of them. In order to meet some of our, some of the sort of, ISO standards that we want to reach, that becomes much more important. There's security aspects that are really important. There's a whole suite of things that that we really need to do and want to be able to automate that as much as possible. And so I'm actually fairly excited about some of the upcoming features on I hope I'm not blowing anything for Izzy, but something that we've talked about previously about some of the upcoming features around performance and reporting and that kind of thing, which I think are incredibly interesting. And so that's going to be, something that we're looking forward to utilizing, because I think it's going to provide a huge amount of value.
That's great. And we look to support you in that journey, Dale, as you re-architect and replatform Stack, we'll be here for you. So I do want to thank you, Meredith and Dale. It's been my pleasure speaking to you both today, and excited to see what's next for Stack. And if anyone's interested, Stack Overflow is hiring all around the world. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.